Hey guys, I wanted to give you a quick rundown of the Node-RED backend for this latest escape room that we built. So if you've seen one of my other videos, we talked about all the different types of backend I've done, the different types of control from processing to QLab only to using foams, and now Node-RED is what we're using. So we're using Node-RED for all the logic and the kind of prop control, the management of the pieces in the room, and then we're using QLab for the media. So today we're going to take a look at Node-RED, and I've got it here in front of me. So this is the actual file that's running on the server over there. I'm running it here on my machine. This file, when I imported it here, when you import it in Node-RED, it can actually save it all as a JSON file, which holds all the different nodes, all the different things, the configurations that build up your thing, all the code as well as the nodes and all the other things. That file is 60,000 lines long. This is a very big project. It holds over 2,200 nodes. So the way Node-RED works is it's got all these little bitty nodes, and then it lets you wire them up. And some of the nodes are kind of base nodes and simple, like a debug node would let you take something, and when it gets a message, it drops it onto the debug list. It serial prints it, basically. And then you have other nodes like HTML nodes, inject nodes, change nodes and switch nodes and things like that. They're like these simple one-off functions. And then you have the ability to do function nodes where you can write your own JavaScript. At the end of the day, between all these nodes, you wire them up. You have links in and out and wires you can take everywhere between flows and all that. But ultimately, each node gets and sends messages. And the messages have a subject and they have their payload. And they are themselves just objects. It's just lots of objects passing between. It also has a thing called context, where is how it stores variables. You have both global context, flow context, which is each of these tabs is a flow, and then you have node context, which is the actual this node itself. I don't use node context a lot. I'm using it for my invention counting, but not most of the other stuff is flow context. And the reason I'm using flow instead of global is that there's two copies of this room. And so I have my A props and my B props flows. Each of those has basically the same setup, some slight tweaks between them. But when they're tracking like, hey, they pushed this series of buttons on this prop, that's getting tracked in a flow context variable in that single flow. That way, each room can have a different code that's been entered at the same time. Now, the correct code, I'm actually storing in my global context. So inside those functions, it'll look and it'll say, hey, pull that global context down. What code am I expecting them to get? Pull all these button presses in over MQTT from the prop itself, and then hold that in its own little variable. And when that variable gets to the right place, send on the success message and send that to the rest of the things. So let's take a quick look at the structure of this, how we laid out Node-RED. This tab, this flow, is my game engine. This is where I've got things going from and to QLab, so that's going over just a UDP connection to that. QLab doesn't talk MQTT, so I'm actually using Node-RED to turn its messages into MQTT. And I basically wrote a simple API that just uses a slash delineated path to decide what it's going to do. And so inside this function node, I can see here's the code running this function node. This is my big router, and it breaks that address down, and it says, hey, the first thing is going to be the room. Is it room A or B? Then the type, what is it? Is it a prop command, an input command, a game command, an MQTT command, which I then just turn in MQTT and spit out whatever. And then from there, what is it doing? If it's MQTT, it needs its own address and its payload. So it pulls all those things out of the text string and then sends them on. So this is my big QLab router. And that's going to MQTT out. It then basically indexes its outputs and sends them onto the various places. Some of the other things I see here, I got all my WLAD controllers down here because QLab is, instead of talking directly to them, it doesn't handle well like HTTP commands or JSON commands. So unless they're already built in network commands that it has. So instead, I got this API going on. It talks here, and then this takes that, strips it off, says, hey, you sent me a WLAD command, so pull off the data I need, spit it out to those. And that's how I'm doing my preset control on those controllers. QLab is handling all the DMX control in the room natively within itself, which, by the way, I don't love QLab's DMX control. It's the only thing I don't love about QLab. It's okay. it's pretty slow. I tried, like, we started off, we put every single bulb on its own dimmer so that we could do these like awesome chases and like theater chases around the room and stuff. And QLab bogs down like nobody's business when I do that. I can play all these videos all day long, no problem. Lighting, fades, problem. So I'm not so happy about that. I need to figure out a better solution for that for the next one so that we can do more lively animations in things. How we did it for this room, it does good fades, just not a whole ton of them, not on fast chases and sequences. So we're handling all the lighting there, and then anywhere we need like active animations happening, we have WLED taking care of those, and pixels. Ending my money trail there. Here we have my props and inputs tables in my invention counting, which we will talk about more as we get to it. But that kind of sorts all that out and then sends it on. And then here's where the output of anything that came in through my game engine, so whether it came as an input or whether it came from QLab, gets formatted for the team dashboard, which we'll talk about. Lots of things to talk about. Actually, I guess let's jump there next. So we have the team dashboard. This is the web page, and I've got another video showing what it looks like to them. And it's the series of check marks and bulbs showing their status. It shows the other team's status if we're in race mode, or it hides that. The whole thing can be visible or not. It's got the game timer on it. Looks real cool, has all these animations on it. That's all just native web page. So up here is where we're actually building it in this section. This handles going to the page itself. So it's A dashboard and B dashboard for the two sides. It's just a web page. You can get to it anywhere on the network. So like in the Game Master room, I can pull it up and see what's going on. But it interacts. And so it's got JavaScript, it's got CSS, it's got the HTML content, and then this HTML template just takes those three things, nests them together, and sends a response. And because of the way we built this out, this is able to exist just in one place. And then down here we have our WebSockets. That's how we actually control it with these WebSocket in and out. Take these different nodes, these different payloads and messages that are passing around in Node-RED, toss them in and out of that page so it can give it feedback, it can talk into it. And so here we have my controls. These are all the buttons that end up on that Game Master UI to manipulate that timer. And then this one is my link out from the game engine where it's actually like all the check marks are being driven from QLab. Over my utilities page, this is mostly power. So I've got a couple buttons that like restart the different pies, turn the system on and off. We have some CASA smart switches that are on the power supplies themselves and the smart lights. So we can just control power from Node-RED. You just click boot up and it turns everything on in the sequence it needs to with delays, everything like that. And then the single prop I have on here is my tag writer. So I have a little ESP32 with a RC522 RFID chip on it. And it's in the Game Master room. It shows up on their little dashboard that I'll show you. And it lets them read a tag, make sure it's working, and then they can also write the tag so they can change what the number is on it. Bunny trail here, the way I'm handling RFID in this room and in a lot of things I do right now is that there's a specific block on the tag. Instead of using the actual tag's ID, I don't really care about that. I don't want to be tied to this MAC address of this, or this EID of this card, sorry, UID of this card. Instead, I have block 8. Block 8, I write a number to, and that number is that card. Maybe it's a little redundant, but it means that instead of having to remember all the tags I have out there, I can just throw this data onto a tag, and I can have as many tags as I want that have the same number or not. It wouldn't work with like a hotel key card type system, but it works great for this. And it keeps me from having to manage a database that I have to keep online of that. Fun bunny trail there is, at one point we actually had a full SQL database where this was logging every action that happened. Every time players did something, or if we overrode it from QLab or we hit manually solve, that would actually go in. It was really cool. Didn't end up being useful enough to keep maintaining, so we actually abandoned that and pulled it out. But it's possible. So if you have a use case where you need that, it can be done. And it's actually not that hard to like have that simple databasing. It just matters of if are you going to use it for anything. Data's great, but bad data is worse than no data, and data is only as good as what you use it for. So yeah, this is just pies and system power. Yeah. Last kind of utility tab we'll talk about is the relays. So we're using these WaveShare relays. They are fantastic. They're PoE 30 relays on a thing, all built in. They're optically isolated. They're just really great. They're awesome relays. They have built-in flash modes and everything. So if you're using, like, we're using a million of the cabinet locks, they're not going to get stuck on and burn out. If you're using mag locks, you don't care about that so much, but if you're using the cabinet locks, you got to pop them and then let go. If you hold them, they will melt the coils. So we've got them using this little flash mode built into the relay, so it doesn't matter what my system does. It doesn't matter if I drop a packet or whatever. I can't get stuck. I literally cannot get stuck with it stuck on, because all I'm doing is hitting flash. So it just goes paka, and then it's done. Really great, really awesome. Been rock solid. But to control them, you have to use basically hex. You basically have to send them raw hex codes. Not a lot of things like doing raw hex codes. At the very least, you're doing a lot of escaping. It's possible. It's not pretty. So instead, we're using that little simple text-based API that we have from QLab. It's sending that into our game engine, which then makes its way over here and has these relays. This is also controlled from Node-RED because of what we'll see on the prop page, where we have the heartbeat going on that can automatically power cycle props if they ever do go offline, which doesn't happen a whole ton, but happens. So having some way to recover that is very important, and this is how we do it. So we've got all these different relays. In general, we just organize them. So on this 30-bank relay, the first 10 are reserved for cabinets, the next 10 are reserved for switches, and the last 10 are reserved for power. Cabinets are cabinets. It's a 12-volt maglock, or not maglock, but a 12-volt latch. The next 10, the switches, is things like if I'm switching power on, or a mag, or a linear control motor that I need to switch it to a mode. And then power is, I'm powering a prop off this with the normally connected side, and when I flash that, it's going to kill it, let it go. So we're kind of handling all that here. And these functions are just taking, again, that simple API text and then turning it into that weird raw hex format that the relay control boards actually want. Means that I never have to remember that again. I just have this little function. I'm going to use that from here out. The meat and potatoes, the props pages. Like I said, A and B are pretty much identical, but this is where the magic happens. And over here at the top left, starting with prop 1, is a terrible idea because it's just got so much going on. It's really 10 props. Let's take a look at a simple one here. We're going to look at prop 8, our mic buttons. So this is on the A page. The A page also has these up here. These are how I'm actually setting the codes. So I basically, inside this node, I put the code what I want it to be, code 1, 2, and 3, because it's a 3-stage puzzle. They solve it once, then twice, then 3 times. And I have these saved. And that sets it into that global context. A and B both reference that global context, so B doesn't have these nodes. And then the rest of the nodes are pretty much the same for all the props with some slight differences. Over here, we have our MQTT in, which basically says, like, hey, this is the topic of that prop. Bring it in. Subscribe to it. It then it splits it out based on the address. So, like, there's online messages, input messages, Pong messages, which has to do with the heartbeat, the ping of the Pong. And those all get routed to different places in here. Within this, if it's, for instance, an online or a Pong message, it comes down here and it sets, up here, and it sets a delay. It says, hey, every 3 seconds, you got a Pong, send another ping, see if it's still there. So every 3 seconds, it says, you still there? You still there? And that goes out over this ping MQTT output. Once that hits the prop, it sends a Pong. Down here, it separately comes down, and there's this check heartbeat, which basically says, hey, every time you get a Pong, you can reset your timer. But if it ever lasts X long, and it's usually 10 to 15 seconds that we set it for, every 3 seconds, you should be getting one back. If you don't, then after 15 seconds, nope, he's dead. Bring it back. And so then that hits this reset power and sends that on over to that relay page. So every 3 seconds, we're sending a heartbeat. Are you alive? If we don't hear back within 15 seconds, then it's dead. Power cycle it. We also have this recover offline for if we have gotten completely out of our loop timing-wise. Every 5 minutes, it reaches back out and it says, hey, anybody that's not actually alive, bring them back alive. Try it again. And then, here we have our state machine. So all the different props have states, and there's a big state table that drives their LEDs and drives what they're doing and the drop-downs we'll see in the menus and all that. But whenever it comes online, it asks, hey, what's my state? And all those are being tracked in Node-RED in flow variables. Flow because I have one for A, one for B. But it's tracking what state it's at. And so here, when it comes online, it comes back and says, hey, I just came back. I have no memory. What should I be? And it says, "Yay, you should be ready right now," or "You're already solved." And you went offline, so we still power cycled you, but you're solved. We don't need you right now, or off. And that goes out to this state. And then also the other thing going to this state, it flows through the game engine page. Is if we puzzle solve. And so puzzle solve is like the main function in each of these. That one is the one that says, hey, what type of message are you getting? I'm getting button pushes. I'm getting fader positions. I'm getting whatever I'm getting. Tags, RFID tags. And it says, well, what do I need to do with that information? Do I care about other things? Do I care about what state I'm in? How do I interact? Puzzle solve is where that is. Some of those are simple. They're 10 lines. Some of them are hundreds of lines of code. Really just depends on what it is. But that function in each of these props is what this room is about. That is how this room ticks. That's what makes it work. Everything else is housekeeping. I also have, like I said, that first prop, the fuse panel. It sucks to do multiple RFIDs on a single ESP32. I didn't want to use the little black, your 12-volt RFID triggers because you can't see what the tag is. So yeah, you program it to what tag I want. That's all well and good, but I want to see not only was the tag right, I want to see what tag was it if it was wrong, so I can figure out why they do that. I need to be able to correct them that way, not just see, okay, well, 2 and 4 are wrong, so you probably have them flipped. I want to see way at the beginning, 3 is wrong. You did this, you ignored that rule in the puzzle, and so move forward from there. So we have individual ESPs with RFIDs on each of our readers. The fuse panel is one big prop. It's got 10 of them. And so each one has its own full set of all this stuff. It's got its own heartbeat, it's got all these things. But then we take that, they all feed in to a single puzzle solve and offline combine, which lets us say, hey, if any of them go offline, wait, and then you got to power cycle them all because they're all on a single relay. That didn't run 10 relays for all of those to the same location. We just have one relay, so we just power cycle all of them. They all come back. But if any of them go offline, do that. And then the puzzle solve says, hey, I don't care if one of them's right. Anytime any of them get a new tag, I need to check all of them. And so those combine up and do that. Lots of different props, all mostly the same thing with that puzzle solve being different. Some small changes. But yeah, that's what we have going on here. Now, all of this doesn't really matter if I can't see it and do anything with it. And that's where my GM dashboard comes in. So I'm going to reset this page. It's yelling at me right now because my pies are all offline because I don't have them here. I'm at the office. So I'm going to reset the page to get rid of those. Normally in a game, A, I would have them, so those wouldn't be popping up. But B, I wouldn't have left this page unattended for them to accumulate like that. So there'd just be one sitting there. I could just click go. You can always refresh the page. This looks like a lot. There's a lot going on. During the game, QLab actually hides and shows these different props. So when you reset, these all go away, and you're just left with the 2 timers up top and nothing. I've got my room A on the left column, my room B on the right column. I end up with nothing here. And then QLab, as each prop becomes available, QLab comes in and makes each prop visible, which is very cool. I might should have turned off these alerts for this, but you get to deal with them. Sorry. So in general, as the game is going on, the only things I see here are the things that the players can actively interact with right now. They are turned on. They are ready. I'm looking for the players to do something. So there's, anywhere between 2 and 4 of these at a time, usually in each room run. The other thing it'll bring up is if a prop goes offline. If a prop goes offline, it pops up here so that it immediately grabs my attention. Hey, there's something wrong. The heartbeat's going to take care of it. It's going to power cycle it on its own, but I still want to know. If it's coming up in the room run, I want to know, hey, I may need to do something about this. I may need to prompt them. I may need to keep an eye on it and see what they do. Any of those fun things that I do as a good game master. On each of these props, I can see its name, its online status, which again, they'll show up if they're offline, even if they've been told by QLab to be hidden. Now, there's also exceptions to that because they're mobile props. Like I have another video showing one of the patch modules. It's wireless. It's unplugged a lot of the room, even when it might be able to be done. When that one, it actually ignores the offline status. So it's just following QLab, any of the mobile props. Hey, should I be visible or not? It does not override that. with offline. That way, again, keep my dashboard clean. I have this low light and highlight buttons that drives those little status pixels on them, so I can make it flash green or red if I want to grab their attention, or if I want to like give them feedback that something they're doing like is actively wrong, or they got the wrong thing, whatever. I can push that through there. I don't end up using that a lot. I thought it was a cool idea. We didn't end up using it a bunch. Here I have my drop down, so this is for my state. So right now, this prop can either be off, ready, or solved. And when QLab is driving that, it's doing it automatically. But if I need to solve a prop, hey, something's going weird, something's going wrong, half the time, look, the players kind of know what they're doing, but they're doing it slightly wrong. So like there's a thing where they have to push buttons in a sequence, and they could either push them once, or they could try to push them like multiple times for each. And there's, I guess, a reason they would want to or think to do that. If I want to give it to them because it's just a better player experience that they move forward, I can do that. I can just come in here and click solved, and I can, I can see all their button pushes, so I can see what they're doing, why they're doing it, and if I agree that, close enough, look, I'm not a stickler about this. It's not about being right. It's about feeling like you were right. It's about having a good time. So if the best player experience is for me to solve it, I can do that. And I do it here. It's the exact same as if the prop did it. It still triggers QLab. It still goes through all the sequences, all the things, sets the light green on the prop, everything exactly the same as if they'd done it. Here, underneath that little drop down, I can always see what the answer is. So if I have like these multi-stage puzzles where there's different button sequences for each stage, it's telling me, hey, this is the next thing they need. And then over here in the info, I can see what they're doing. So like, now I'm also realizing, and by now I will have already blurred some of the answers out, but the answers that matter at least, to avoid spoilers. So there I can see that. Yeah, that's really it. So I've got my timer up top. I've got all the props. They appear and disappear. Over here, I've got my quick utilities tab. You can see where I have my tag writer. I can write my tags. I have my power and my system power. And then, I guess maybe I'll make a little quick video on some of the utilities that we made. That'll be a fun one. So check out for that. In general, take a look around. I'm going to put all these videos into a playlist. Definitely love to, hear your thoughts on what we're doing and what you like, don't like, what you would do different. And yeah, if you want to chat about this, you want to chat about how we could help build something like this or build something much smaller than this and nice little quick props that keep these same tenets in mind. We're up for anything from consulting to single prop build to full room tech build out. Yeah, there we go.